A new ministry gift has been discovered. It is the gift of painting over rainbows. Apparently, this is a new, spiritual expression, or perhaps, I don't know, an expression of not what people of faith believe, but perhaps what they're against. An interesting situation, I suppose. Is it a good thing to be painting over rainbows, or another way of putting things, to be defacing public property? Joining me on the program now is Josiah Brown from the Maxim Institute. Josiah, kia ora, good morning. Thanks for your time today.
Good morning, Andrew.
I mean, perhaps some people would see it as a civil duty. Various councils find it difficult to keep up with maintenance budgets. A team of volunteers turning up in the middle of the night to do their job for them. I mean, I don't think the judge would accept that as an excuse, perhaps.
No, I'm not sure the paint job was approved by the council.
Exactly. Although I suppose it does have a question where people go, well, who did approve the paint job? Who did say that this is what the citizens of this particular community want as a rainbow crossing or a zebra crossing? Is this hate speech against zebras? And various other questions about whether or not this was the right thing to do. I think it's pretty clear, though, that middle of the night vandalism isn't an appropriate response to concerns about how your local city council is spending ratepayers' money.
No, vandalism is wrong, and Brian Tamaki's response to paint over the rainbow crossing really wasn't wise for a few reasons. I mean, chief among them is it sends possibly for some the message that a particular group of our society is being targeted.
Yeah.
Actually, in context, when you consider the protest action that was before this initial incident, he was actually there protesting drag queen story hour.
Yeah.
And I would actually argue, contextually speaking, his protest action and the protest action of members of his church is actually less about a particular community or organization, whatever you might like to call it. It's actually about the promotion of a particular stance or ideology that's being imposed in a way that people don't like and respond negatively to, as has been done.
And hey, it's perhaps no surprise, Brian Tamaki's been on record as having certain views about the rainbow community. Although, to be fair, were any members of the rainbow community harmed in this action? This was damaging council property. Was there any harm done in that regard, do you think?
Well, police are investigating the graffiti vandalism, which they say on the face of it is consistent with a hate crime, which is interesting because as far as I can tell, vandalism can only be committed against those whose property has been damaged in some way.
Yeah.
This is a public road that's been damaged. And so ratepayers then, are they the victims of this incident? So I'm not sure personally how consistent the charge of hate crime is with this particular incident.
And also, this is getting a little bit of the cart before the horse, because as far as I understand, hate crime isn't actually on the books at the moment. Vandalism is. This is something which is being talked about by the current government as, we're not doing hate speech, but maybe we'll do something in the future which might look at hate crime. But it's certainly not within the list of crimes that the police can prosecute people under. Or have I not caught up on this one?
Well, I mean, surely any crime has a level of hate involved. If
Yep.
I steal something from you, if I attack you physically, there's a level where I'm actually withholding or not showing love to you like I ought.
Yep.
So in some ways, it seems a little bit silly to call something a hate crime because, well, of course, there's a level of that involved anyway. You also move into dangerous territory, as we're sort of seeing in Scotland at the moment, where hate speech laws come in, and the government then gets to dictate effectively what you can say and think on particular matters. Certain speech is then criminalized, and you can be punished for that. And so it's worth noting J.K. Rowling's Twitter response. She's basically, said, lock me up. And she's actually, broken the law online.
Yep.
And she's painted herself as a target because I guess she sees herself as possibly untouchable and also possibly, setting precedent. If J.K. Rowling is not going away for what she has said,
Yep.
and it meets the threshold of what is hate speech, then surely somebody else cannot go away for saying effectively the same thing. That would do away with any notion of equality under the law.
Speaking of painting ourselves, I suppose, people that paint themselves blue and cry freedom and I suppose look for the freedoms fought by the Scottish people over many years, I think William Wallace would be turning in his grave if he knew that with some of the changes that have happened to Scottish law recently. And to be fair, there's been quite a bit of pushback, not just from Harry Potter authors, but generally from the people of Scotland. Not a happy space.
No, I wouldn't imagine so. And so that really does make us think, is equality under the law being upheld here? Is it being threatened in some way? And what incidents might suggest that we're moving toward a kind of state-approved way of thinking about certain things?
Yeah.
There's questions about who holds power and whose views get to have the support, cultural, political, popular, whatever, and whose views don't. And by definition, New Zealand is a secular country. We are to be treated equal under the law, irrespective of our beliefs.
There may be, I think they need to perhaps bring in a different thing, nothing to do with hate, but I think they need to bring an illegal painting law into the mix here, because it seems to be painting that's the problem. And another relatively recent example, of course, with the defacing of a facsimile of Te Tiriti of Waitangi in Te Papa Museum in Wellington, people, if somebody disagrees ideologically with something, be it a English translation of Te Tiriti or a rainbow crossing, they can express their hate by painting over it. I mean, similar to climate activists throwing paint or soup or something else at various artworks around the world. If you hate it, paint it. There's a slogan for you.
And I think what you've identified with that incident is actually a trend toward unequal weights and measures, because in effect, you've essentially got the same issue, be it painting on the road, or painting on a wall. So maybe is the difference, the position of what you're painting on, whether it's upright or on the ground. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, you contrast the two responses. The Defaced Treaty exhibit is still up 4 months later. That's despite the Minister for Arts and Culture, Paul Goldsmith, requesting before the summer break, can this be restored or taken down in some way? And Te Papa said it would stay up over the summer. He sent another letter in February, and this is what he said. He said, "I would like to express my strong view that the damaged panel should be removed or repaired as soon as possible." He says that he considers the damage to this panel is something that denigrates New Zealand's founding documents and national identity. So for him, this is something quite serious, and yet this has stayed up. You contrast that with the rainbow crossings, and within a matter of days, the crossings were either repainted or otherwise restored. That's quite a stark contrast.
It certainly is, although to be fair, I think the quality of the paint at Te Papa was slightly better, and again, perhaps gravity.
I mean, they had angle grinders.
Well, exactly. Whereas I think some of the paint, particularly in the K Road incident, just washed off overnight in a heavy rain.
It was water-based.
Exactly. So look, I don't want to give these guys any clues, but maybe a stronger paint next time, guys. I think this is the point, though, that if it's a crime depending on your ideology. It's a crime if it's not a crime if it's a good cause. It is a crime if I don't agree with the ideological point that you're making. Having these two standards depending on the motivation behind the crime, I'm not sure where this sits within the justice system, Josiah.
I mean, even take the example of the burning of an Israeli flag. That was in Auckland last year. Christchurch synagogue was attacked last year. The media coverage did not mention hate or hate crime with regard to those incidents, nor did the police, to my knowledge, investigate those as such. So if you are going to call the painting over of a rainbow crossing a hate crime because this flag represents a particular people or community, you also then have to consider the burning of an Israeli flag the same thing. And the fact that that's not the case reeks of hypocrisy.
And certainly if we're going to have laws along this regard, whether it to be laws about hating or laws about painting, we need to be consistent in the way in which they are carried out. And if even the Attorney General can't get something done about reinstating the English translation of Te Tiriti, then, gosh, that does say something about the justice system. Josiah, some interesting food for thought. This particular article, I understand, is going to be posted on the Maxim website by the end of the week, maxim.org.nz. Thanks for the work you do. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Andrew.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.